Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be my 2020 Avatar and Korra story and merchandise preview. So this is going to be the third of 3 videos that I do at the end of every year covering Avatar. So the first one that I did was the top 5 story moments from the Avatar and Korra content this year. Second one was the general 2019 Avatar year in review. This one is the 2020 preview for the story and merchandise. So the other 2 videos will be linked in the description below, but let's get straight into this one. So first of all, the dates that I mention here, release dates, are accurate as of the making of this video. They will probably change, mainly Dark Horse books based on past history. They tend to just randomly, often change the dates for some reason. Sometimes it'll be by a week, 2 weeks, not really sure. I don't think it'll affect most of these books that much, just because they've been announced and they've been pretty steady on these release dates. But, you know, when they announce the new comics, they're the ones that might actually start getting date changes. But anyway, let's jump in with the Dark Horse Avatar comics. These are the 3 confirmed books that we have right now, and it definitely doesn't look immediately as good as previous years, because as you can see here, we have one new piece of content, new story, and that is Runes of the Empire Part 3. This book is coming out February 25th, 2020. This book is going to be the final part of Runes of the Empire, and it should be a very exciting book. So February 25th is going to be the release date for this book digitally and from most stores. And actually the comic book store release date is going to be the day afterwards, February 26th. So that's that. And then we get into the other 2 books, which are actually kind of reprint books. So we have Avatar: The Last Airbender Imbalance Library Edition. This book is coming out May 13th in comic book stores and May 26th elsewhere from Amazon and so on. So this book is going to be the kind of deluxe hardcover collection of Imbalance. So it'll have Imbalance Part 1, 2, and 3 included. It's going to be a bigger book, hardcover, and it's going to have some extras like concept art and stuff like that. So we'll see exactly how exactly that book works once it is out, because obviously the last library edition did not feature any annotations. So we'll see, is this the first Avatar comic to not have annotations or not? So that there is some interest with this, but in general it is a collection. I know some people tend to wait for those to buy the book, so that'll be an exciting one for some people. The other thing, and kind of a new thing, is these omnibus editions. So the first one is obviously going to be the first Avatar comic, The Promise Omnibus Edition. Now what these are going to be is they're going to be basically basic versions of the library edition. So they're not going to be hardcover, they're just going to be small paperback versions that just collect the 3 parts of the comic. So there's nothing extra in these, it's just the 3 comics in one book, smaller size, cheaper cost. That's the idea here, to get a more sort of cost-effective reprint of these books out. The placeholder image they're using for the cover is the library edition cover, but they have confirmed that the omnibus edition here will have a new cover. It's just yet to be revealed. So we should be seeing that pretty much like any day now, any week now, whenever they do the announcement. But anyway, this book is coming out June 17th in comic book stores and June 30th elsewhere. So that's going to be an exciting one, to just have those books available at a cheaper cost, and the new cover adds some intrigue about what exactly they're going to do with them. Will it be the return of Team Gurihuru? I hope it is. That would be cool to see more of their art. So yeah, it feels a little empty on the Dark Horse side of things, but we'll get to that later in the speculation section. So novels. This was the sort of smash hit in a way of this year. The Rise of Kyoshi coming out made this year in a way for Avatar content. And 2020 is actually going to have 2 releases from Abrams Books. One is going to be the reprint here, the trade paperback release of The Rise of Kyoshi. That one's coming out on June 9th, 2020. That's going to be obviously just the non-hardcover version of the book. I suppose it's going to be cheaper, not as big as the hardcover, so that I think will make the book that little bit more accessible. more of an option for people who maybe don't like to mess around with hardcovers and stuff like that, with the dust covers and so on. But the big thing that there's excitement behind here is the second and final Kyoshi novel, The Shadow of Kyoshi. This book is coming out July 21st, 2020, so just a month after the trade paperback is released. We only have a placeholder cover right now, but it more highlights that, okay, the cover, the colors of the cover are going to be red, and then we do know we're going to see Rangi on the cover. Kyoshi, I suppose, obviously will probably be on the cover as well, and who knows, we may get to see some of the other characters as well. So when the new cover is revealed, it probably will be just as interesting thing as some of the stuff in the book. Finally getting to see canonically, I suppose, what some of these characters look like. But yeah, this book is going to be a huge part of 2020, because The Rise of Kyoshi showed us how amazing an Avatar novel can be, and I think this book is set to be just as interesting, just as good. So lots of excitement behind that. Next up, Inside Editions are going to be releasing their third Avatar book that features, some level of story content. We had Avatar Legacy, we had an Avatar's Chronicle, and now we have, releasing February 4th, 2020, Legacy of the Fire Nation. I actually got an early copy of this book from Inside Edition, so I have a video about this book up on my channel. I tried my best not to go overly spoilers on it and more give just a kind of detailed preview of it. So you can check that video out if you want more of an insight into this book, linked in the description below. But what this book is it's one of these books that is, it's hardcover, 64 pages, full color, has a bunch of like insert kind of pull out things in it as well. And the premise of it is basically that Iroh has made this sort of scrapbook style book to give to Zuko. It covers stuff like the history of the Fire Nation royal family, different bits and pieces about, Iroh's experiences, Zuko's experiences, and just anything that's sort of related to the Fire Nation type thing. So it's definitely the best of the three books that Inside Editions has released, and I think it is one that is actually worth checking out for fans, whereas the previous books maybe were a little bit more skippable. I think this one actually warrants checking out. So that's definitely a good release next year as well, and fairly early in the year, which is good. And then we move on to speculation, because they're all the books that have been confirmed with release dates. So the main speculation is about the next Avatar and Korra comic series. We know there is a new Avatar comic coming, and we assume another Korra one is coming also, because nothing has officially been announced yet, like pretty much either way. They've neither come out to say this is the last comic, nor have they said for sure there's another one. But we know the creative team from Imbalance has sort of been talking about another project, so that's why we pretty much know there is another Avatar comic coming, and I think the same can more or less be said for the Korra comic team. But again, nothing officially announced yet. When they do get announced, assuming they get announced somewhat soon, we would expect part 1 of each of these new series to be released within 2020, and if they're announced early enough, we may also get the part 2 of the new Avatar comic in 2020 also. Because pretty much like once we get the first part of the Avatar comic, and there's still about 4 months in the year left, we're probably going to get that second part as well. So that's kind of one way to look at it. So the release date for the first part will sort of, in a way, give us an insight into potentially when the second part will be released. So it's just speculation, but I think it's interesting to talk about. Runes of the Empire Library Edition is pretty much all but confirmed. It's going to be a thing. Why would they stop library editions at this point? So this should be announced, and the release date for it will likely be somewhere around September or October 2020. The reason I say that is because usually they leave about 6 to 7 months between the release of the final part of the series, the initial release, and the release of the library edition. That's how it worked for Imbalance and all of the previous books, and I doubt they're going to change it for Runes of the Empire. So look for the library edition around September, October 2020. And I also assume we will get an omnibus edition for The Search, and maybe even The Rift in 2020 as well. This is very dependent on, I suppose, what their plan is in terms of how long they want to wait between releases, given that they are just reprint books. In that, like, Are they going to be waiting 6 months between books, a year between books? That's why I speculate that I'm pretty confident that the Search one will be in 2020. The Rift may be a little bit of a stretch, but I'd be shocked if they are leaving it too much time between books. And that's why, like, with this book releasing in June, I think is the release of the Promise omnibus. There's still like roughly half of the year left at that point. I would be surprised if they didn't manage to squeeze the Search one before the end of the year. Now, to be fair, they haven't confirmed that there are going to be omnibus editions for the other books, but why would they make such a big deal about announcing The Promise as having an omnibus edition if it was only going to be for one book? I do think this is going to be a new sort of, series of releases. There's no way they're not going to do this for the other books. Because I think there is a demand for this, and that I think a lot of people might be turned off by the high price of the library editions and how sort of unavailable they are at times, and then it can be awkward trying to collect the full Avatar comic set just from the individual parts, because you're buying like 15, 16 books instead of just 5 or 6 full comic series, and that part 1 of this series, part 2 of this series, that sort of thing. So the omnibus seems like a way to sort of stop confusion and create a cost-effective way for more people to get into the comics. So that's why I do believe there will be one for the Search and the Rift, especially if they're going as far as to do new covers. It makes me feel like there is going to be a whole series of them. So I would expect the Search in 2020, and then maybe the others next year, so the year after that, 2021. If there is a plan, then the last bit here, we may hear about the next novel series after the Kyoshi books, because we know for sure there's only going to be 2 Kyoshi novels. The Shadow of Kyoshi is the last of the 2, but there's been no announcement about if Abrams Books have any plans to do other Avatar books, if they're going to bring a new writer on board or anything like that. We don't know what the plan is, so when the Shadow of Kyoshi comes out, I hope there is a plan in place about what is happening next. I would really like to hope that there is, in that it would be a real shame if we're now going into this like massive delay between the next novel, given how successful The Rise of Kyoshi has been. It's obviously sold well, it's well liked by the fan base. It is proof that this is a way to for sure deliver the type of content that fans want at this point. Why not immediately have a next series planned? You've got so much room to work with in the Avatar universe, and there should be no problem coming up with another story where you can tell along the lines of the Kyoshi books. So I hope there's an announcement, but again, nothing has really been stated right now. So this leaves our sort of list of potential 2020 story content looking like this. So Legacy of the Fire Nation is going to sort of start the year, followed by Runes of the Empire Part 3. Then Imbalance Library Edition is going to be our first sort of reprint of the year. The Rise of Kyoshi paperback will follow that, also a reprint. Then we'll get our first omnibus release, the Promise Omnibus. Then we'll get into probably one of the biggest parts of the year, The Shadow of Kyoshi. The second Kyoshi novel is going to get its release. Then we get into some of the more speculation-orientated stuff here. This is not confirmed, but once it's confirmed within the next couple of weeks, it probably will slot in somewhere here. I think the Avatar The Last Airbender comic number 7, which is what the new one would be, it's the 7th series, Part 1, will be released in between The Shadow of Kyoshi and Runes of the Empire Library Edition. Like I said before, the speculation on that would be somewhere between September and October. So once they announce the book, the new Avatar comic within the next few weeks, I doubt they'll leave us waiting too long for the release. So January to somewhere in the region of like July, August, September seems reasonable for the new book to come out. That's why I say that's where I would sort of slot it in. But I think it's for sure going to come out in 2020. I don't think there's any way we're announcing a new Avatar comic and it's for the year after, 2021. Then Korra comic number 3, Part 1. I do think this will also be a 2020 release. I don't think they'll manage to fit Part 2 of the next Korra comic in, just because obviously Korra is sort of behind the Avatar comics in terms of the cycle of releases, and that we're only getting Runes of the Empire Part 3 at the start of this year, so you have to give them that time, which is why I feel they'll only be the first part released. I do think, though, if it's announced early enough, we will get the second part of the Avatar comic in 2020. But again, it is just speculation at the moment. It might slip into very, very early 2021, but we'll have to wait and see on that. And then, like I said earlier, I do speculate that I think we will see the Search Omnibus announced and probably get its release in 2020 as well. Just because they have like the better part of 5-6 months between the release of the Promise Omnibus, where I think they will want to immediately confirm it is a series of re-releases of those books. So I don't think they'll wait a massive amount of time between them, given that they are just reprints with a new cover. So that's the story content, and looking at it there, say all of that comes true. That's our lineup of books. We have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 pieces of new content, and then 4 reprint books. That's a very good year. That looks like a very, very good year. Legacy of the Fire Nation as like the best Inside Editions book we've had so far. Runes of the Empire Part 3 Runes of the Empire has been a very well received series, the best Korra comic so far. And Part 3 should bring it to a really good conclusion in terms of where they're leaving Kuvira off. Shadow of Kyoshi is definitely going to be a big highlight of the year. We now know what to expect from these Avatar novels, so there's going to be a lot of excitement in the build-up to release, rather than the kind of wondering what the Rise of Kyoshi even is that we had last year. So that's going to be a big part of the year. Then obviously we're waiting for the announcements, but whatever the next Avatar comic is announced, if it's a good story, there's going to be tons of excitement for that. And the same goes for the new Korra comic, in that they've got so many options about what way exactly they're going to go with the story, so you can really do whatever you want with the Korra comics. The Avatar comics, I think there's pressure on them to deliver the story I think people want. So if that gets confirmed as being like the Azula story, 2020 looks like a great year. Really, really good. Moving into the merchandise for 2020, these sort of toys, other releases, the non-story content stuff. First up, we have this new release of the Avatar The Last Airbender Blu-ray. So this is going to be the Avatar The Last Airbender Steelbook Blu-ray set. It's basically to celebrate the 15-year anniversary of Avatar in 2020. Show started in 2005. 2020, it's been 15 years, so that's what this is about. And what it's going to be is it's going to be 3 steel books, 1 for each of the books of Avatar, collected in a pretty nice kind of overall box case. The image on the left is the image for the case overall for all 3 of them, and then you can see the image on the right is what one side of the steel book looks like for book 1. It has Katara on the front. The book 2 one has Toph on the front. The book 3 one has Aang on the front. And then on the other side, it actually is an image that when you line all the books up, it creates one big image. So they're going all out on the packaging for this, but ultimately it is just packaging. How much do you care about having those steel book boxes for the discs? How much do you care about the new art on the packaging? Because there's nothing new on the discs. It's about 3 to 4 times the price of the standard Avatar Blu-ray set, which is very often on sale. So if you literally just want Blu-ray discs of Avatar, you should just get the original set. I don't think this is worth it for the most part, given how expensive it is. It's retailing, the pre-order right now is about somewhere in the region of like $85 to $95, compared to about $25, I think, is what the Blu-ray is going for right now. I don't think this new packaging is worth it. We do know it's going to come with like an excerpt from The Rise of Kyoshi, so it looks like it's going to have probably around like 20-30 pages, but that's more of an advertisement type thing. I wouldn't really put any value just on the basis that it has an excerpt from The Rise of Kyoshi, the book that's already out. In that even if this set included the full Rise of Kyoshi book, I still think there'd be a little bit of like, where's the value here type thing. I definitely think it's kind of missing something overall. So I'm definitely interested in how it sells, if it goes on sale eventually. Then maybe, once it goes on sale, and there's still copies of it left, that's when it probably becomes a more kind of go-to purchase for me. But at full price, no way. I don't think so. It's not worth it. Next up, Funko Pops. So these were a really big thing in 2019. They were confirmed at the end of 2018, released this year. Very exciting to see people finally have access to sort of wide release, not particularly expensive figures of our favorite Avatar characters. And it was so exciting throughout the year to just see people get their hands on these and kind of post with their excitement about them. So it was an exciting thing this year for Avatar, and it looks like it's going to be another exciting year for the Funko Pops in 2020 because it's been leaked that we're getting Legend of Korra Funko Pops. Right now it's just a kind of database listing, but we've seen this before. This is how we first heard about what exact Funkos we were getting for Avatar, so this is a very good sign. It's pretty much all but guaranteed these are coming in 2020. At least these four, so we're getting Amon, Asami, Korra, and Mako, but it's very likely there will be other ones announced. There'll probably be at least one or two exclusives, and this might not actually be all of the standard ones, so don't think that this is all of them, because there will probably be more announced. So like it says here, no images yet, highly likely for 2020, and then also I'd be very surprised if we didn't get more Avatar Funko Pops in 2020 as well. While the Funkos we got in 2019 covered a lot of ground, there's still a lot of other characters I think people would like to see, like an Ozai, just to have the overall series villain, would be very nice. Suki didn't get a Funko Pop, there's the previous avatars like Kyoshi and stuff like that to cover. Different versions of the characters we already have I think would be very good, like a Book 3 Aang, a Book 3 Zuko, a Book 3 Katara, all the ones that people want. And then plus some of the more minor characters, and of course the other kind of supporting characters like Ty Lee and Mei don't have Funkos yet. So there's tons of options on the Avatar front. So like I said, I'd be very, very shocked if we didn't get more Avatar ones announced to go with the Korra ones as well. So yeah, like I do expect like Bolin will get one, Tenzin, and we'll see some exclusives as well. So Funkos are going to be fun in 2020 as well. Moving on, obviously announced this year, the Walgreens version has been released, but the main line, Diamond Select Avatar The Last Airbender figures, are going to be released in 2020. As it says here, Wave 1 is coming in January, Wave 2 and 3 are confirmed, though we have no information on which characters are going to be included in those waves, but it means that more than likely we have at least 6 more figures coming. So that's going to be very exciting to see who they cover in those figures. And I also add this note in here. The Walgreens version of these figures have less accessories than the standard release versions everywhere else. So basically, if you want Aang to come with Momo, like you can see in the picture, if you want Katara to come with the big waterbending effect part, get them anywhere except Walgreens. That's basically the information we have right now on them. But again, people who don't like the Funko Pop style and wanted more of an accurate representation of the characters in plastic, here is exactly those figures. Again, they're not going to be overly priced, they're not going to be crazy expensive, so they're going to be available for everyone, and I think this is going to be another great thing to add for collectors of Avatar merchandise this year, and especially if they really deliver on like the Toph, the Sokka that we're very likely to get next year. Could be very, very exciting as well. So lots of good merchandise, pretty much just with the Funkos and the Diamond Select figures. In terms of other merch, Zen Monkey Studios will also likely have a few new pins, keychains, t-shirts for 2020, though nothing's been confirmed yet. And I think they've had a couple of weak years on the Avatar front, so hopefully they improve for 2020 and release some pins of the characters we've kind of wanted and just do some more interesting stuff. And then Box Lunch Toys, Box Lunch, if you haven't heard of them before, like they have tons of Avatar merchandise if you look at their website. The main problem here is that it's not particularly effective for anyone outside of America to order from, so it pretty much is a kind of American exclusive thing. But if you have access to one of these stores nearby or can order without getting crazy shipping, there's lots of merchandise on box lunch, your t-shirts and stuff like that, your pretty standard merchandise. They have kind of it all, so there is other stuff coming as well. In terms of more speculation / expected stuff throughout the year, of course, the big news that we're waiting for is the announcement of the next Avatar The Last Airbender comic, as well as the announcement of the next Legend of Korra comic. They're the two big ones. Potentially the announcement of the next Avatar novels are all three really big things we're waiting for. More Avatar and Korra Funko Pop reveals is definitely something we should be looking for. Similarly, the Wave 2 and 3 reveals for Avatar The Last Airbender, the Diamond Select figures. And also, we should probably in 2020 get our first proper news on the upcoming Netflix live-action Avatar The Last Airbender show. So, just on Wave 2 and 3 of the Diamond Select figures, like, I know a lot of people are kind of concerned of, like, you know, when are we getting Toph, when are we getting Sokka? I'd be very surprised if Wave 2 didn't consist of Toph, Sokka, and another. I think the 6 that will cover Wave 2 and 3 will be something in the region of Toph, Sokka, Suki, Azula, Ozai, and Iroh. They seem like the kind of obvious go-to ones. It's pretty much just all about how they choose to break up those waves, in that I don't think they'll do a full wave that is just the Fire Nation characters, so I don't think they'll put like Ozai, Azula, and Iroh in one wave, because it would be too sort of very specific, which is why I do maybe think they might split Toph and Sokka up into one in each wave, just so they have a more varied wave. So we might see, like, say, Toph in Wave 2 with, like, Ozai and, Suki or something like that. And then we get, like, Azula, Iroh, and Sokka as the Wave 3. Just so they have a good variety in each wave, that you're not going from a wave of all main characters to a wave of all sort of more supporting characters. That's one way to look at it. And then, yeah, on the Netflix show front, it's been announced for a good while now that this show is coming, and obviously we haven't heard any proper information on it, so yes, we should probably in 2020 get our first proper update on this thing, in terms of, I think, details about what exactly it is beyond the little bit that we know already, what the plans are for it, actor announcements, that sort of thing. Just a sense more about what exactly the show is and what it's going to look like. I think this will, I don't think it'll be released in 2020. It'll definitely, I think, slip into 2021, but we will, I think, get our first proper information on it. And depending on how that goes, like, that could be a pretty exciting thing. There's also just the stuff around it of, like, Mike and Brian are basically involved in kind of everything Avatar related, so we'll probably get confirmation about, like, how much of their time is going to be taken up by that show, in terms of, will we see them still involved in, like, all of the comics and novels and stuff like that, or will they have to take a step back from that and place, like, some of the other writers from Avatar and Korra on board those projects to keep them going while they're focused on this. That's going to be an interesting one with regards to, like, that could actually play a pretty big role in terms of what we do and do not get announced for 2020. In terms of, they could absolutely slow everything down because of this Netflix live action show. They could be like, oh yeah, the comics are on break for a while, or something like that. I think that would be a very bad way to go, in that not everyone is excited about the Netflix show because it's not new content, pretty much. It's just, a retelling of Avatar The Last Airbender, kind of new continuity style. So I hope none of that stuff happens. But to finish off the video, so 2020 overall, if announcements work out, this could be the best year post-Korra for the franchise. The end of Ruins of the Empire and the Kyoshi novel duology should be impactful, and if the new comics deliver on what the fans want, 2020 could be fantastic in terms of the story content. We finally have multiple companies making affordable figures with Funko and Diamond Select, and good news on the Netflix show front could really push 2020 into being one of the best ever years for the franchise. I think the only doubts you would have about 2020 is just the fact that we're going into it hoping that all these announcements play out in the way that we want, but if the next Avatar story isn't something we really want, if it's another imbalanced style story, that's going to be a disappointment. If the next Korra comic is more of another turf wars, that could be not that great. If they don't have any more novels to announce, or everything's going a lot slower than we expect, then yeah, it could be a more of a frustrating year than a potentially super amazing year. It really is all about the announcements playing out as well as we hope they do. So yeah, that's my preview for the 2020 Avatar and Korra merchandise. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.